Scott, the cabinet meeting here is underway as we speak. We do expect that the White House pool will go in there shortly, so we will see some pictures and some sound. We will hear from the president here very shortly in this cabinet meeting. One update that I want to bring you, Scott, to the president's previous tweet on secondary tariffs on Venezuela. This is important and could have enormous potential implications for global trade, because a White House official is telling me now that the way the president envisions those 25% tariffs on any country that does business with Venezuela is those 25% tariffs will be in addition to any existing U.S. tariffs that are applied to that country. Why is that important? Well, Sarah Eisen smartly brought up the fact earlier today that a big customer of Venezuelan oil is China. The United States has now put 20% tariffs on China so far this year. I am told that this means that as of April 2nd, the president envisions 45% tariffs on China as a result of the 25% from Venezuela, the previous 20%. All of that, the president said in his Truth Social post earlier today, will be papered and lawyered and go into effect on April 2nd. You see there the tweet from the president saying any country that purchases oil and gas from Venezuela will be forced to pay a tariff of 25% to the United States on any trade they do with our country. That obviously includes China, and I'm told that 25% is on top of the existing Trump-China tariffs. So potentially huge implications for global trade there, Scott. One caveat, as with everything at this White House, this hasn't been done yet. It is a threat on social media as of right now. I'm told that there was an executive order contemplated with this. That executive order did not end up happening on these secondary Venezuela tariffs. So maybe there's wiggle room here for this administration, but as of now, I'm told that's what the intent is, Scott.
Your point so well made towards the end there, when you underscore the fact that this is just a threat on social media. It's not actually put into practice, which leads me to wonder at some point whether the market just stops paying attention to a comment here or a comment there, like Friday's comment of there will be flexibility, which moved the market. And now we have this post regarding a threat and then the potential of a 45% tariff on China. I mean, at some point, you just have to wait for the actual news.
Yeah, I mean, but look, markets love to buy the rumor and sell the news, right? And I think, that applies here. I mean, we don't know whether this will go through. The president is signaling what his intent is, and as we know, his intent can shift from moment to moment. But I don't think you can ignore the prospect of a 45% tariff on China. I mean, the effect that would have on global trade next week is enormous. So how do market participants figure that out? That's why they're paid the big money to make those decisions. But the president is very clearly signaling some intent here from the White House today. And I should also point out, our Megan Casella got a statement. I think we have a graphic of it here, a statement from a White House official on this idea of whether the sectoral tariffs will go into effect at the same time as the reciprocal tariffs. The statement is may happen or may not. No final decisions have been made as far as sectoral being tacked onto reciprocal. So there was this sense over the weekend that, well, maybe they're backing off of sectoral and reciprocal at the same time. That means, auto tariffs and the like wouldn't happen at the same time as the reciprocal on April 2nd. Well, now a White House official is saying it may or may not. So how do you factor that into your calculations? Again, people get paid a lot more money than me to make those decisions.
Like the ones at my desk right now, which is why I've been asking them about it. Eamon, thanks very much for that. It's Eamon Javers, North Lawn of the White House. Good luck if you are charged with trading a market that gets a headline versus another headline. We said at the very top of the show. How do you deal with that sort of environment? I don't mean literally ignore.
Right.
But at some point, the market's just going to grow exhausted with dealing with every single incremental headline. Now, right now, the market's not weakening at all. In any meaningful way off the prospects of what Eamon was talking about.
Right, because if you look at what Trump's trying to do with this tariff, he's trying to have Venezuela completely put the brakes on sending, he's alleging they're sending gangs, murderers, criminals, spies to the U.S., which frankly, we see that a lot of the gangs that are popping up are Venezuelan. So that's easy for them to rectify Venezuela. So if you take a look at what he's going at and what can be done, this one is something the market should shrug off. Because
yeah, but the
Venezuela
prospect of, forget the Venezuela specific aspect, but if you talk about a much higher tariff with China, well, then it's a whole different ballgame.
Well, it is. My point is, I don't think you see that tariff come through because of what's at the root of it. So you almost have to do it on a case-by-case basis. Just like when he came out and said 200% tariffs on Europe and Canada because they're retaliating it. So you knew the 200 wouldn't stick. However, the broader tariffs, those are going to be problematic because a lot will go on. So look, just from a bigger point, I don't disagree with a lot of the policies. I disagree with the way they're being communicated and the way they're being changed back and forth. That's the issue. So I'm
that's
just
at the root. That in and of itself has been the root of the uncertainty.
It is. I just wonder, and I want everyone's view on this. At some point, does the introduction of where we go here with the tax bill front and center in the headline, does that soften or blunt some of the headlines that we're getting here as it relates to tariffs?
I think he's absolutely softening up the beachheads with all the nasty stuff he's got to do with tariffs, and then comes in and kind of makes nice with a big tax cut. If he can get it through Congress, that's a big if, by the way.
So you have two competing headlines. We've got tax cuts, we're going to extend them.
But nobody's thinking about it.
Right.
Nobody's thinking about that in the markets right now. The markets are completely focused on tariffs. Hopefully he knows what he's doing, and he's going to get the tariffs done and then move to sort of what makes the markets feel.
There's no secret about the tax cuts either.
Yeah, no, it's not a secret, Steve, but nobody's focused on it.
But which one does the market pay attention to?
Well, we're still mired in a debate over growth scare versus recession and whether this trade war policy will put the economy into a recession or not. Yields have been falling for 6 straight weeks.
Yes.
For the wrong reasons, okay? Yields aren't moving lower because, bond investors think that the economy is in just terrific shape.
Correct.
Which leads me to a move of yours, which is buying the TLT.
I did.
Betting that rates are going to continue to fall.
I am, because everything that I'm hearing from this administration is that they're focused on two clear economic outcomes. Lower oil prices, and I'm not necessarily sure they're going to be able to be successful there, and lower interest rates. And I think that I don't even think they're going to be pressuring the Federal Reserve. I just think Treasury Secretary Bessent has spoken to us here on CNBC, to other media outlets about the 10-year Treasury.
Yes, so Fortune magazine says the new saying in the bond market is don't fight Bessent's Treasury.
Right.
Forget about don't fight the Fed. To your point, he has said over and over and over and over, we want to get the 10-year yield down and keep it down.
And I think that, in fact, is what's going to happen. I'm not saying, so my position doesn't require a recession. And I don't think we're headed to a recession. I do think the next 2 labor reports are going to look really ugly with all of the losses of government jobs. But Treasury Secretary Bessent can limit the size of auctions on the 10-year. He can talk about loosening regulations in the banking industry and therefore incentivizing demand on the part of banks for those treasuries. So I just think that the low-hanging fruit for me is probably that the next 50 to 75 basis points for here in a 10-year treasury is lower. And I'm pushing up against what sentiment thinks, because sentiment thinks tariffs are inflationary and we're going to get the spike in the 10-year.
Well, okay. I mean, that's a big move. Maybe you get it, maybe you don't. But
no, it's contrarian. It's contrarian, for sure.
What I would say to you is just be careful, because when we ever get to the debt ceiling, I mean, Bessent's a smart man. He's a very smart man. That's why where he is. And he may just be talking down this market because he knows he's got to flood the market with treasuries once the debt ceiling's lifted.
Bryn, give me a real quick wrap, because I got to take a break here, but I want your perspective.
Yeah, I would urge all investors to listen to Scott Bessent. Chamath and David interviewed him because about a growth scare, he talked very specifically about the math equation, about how quickly they or how long it's going to take for them to reduce government spending. And so I think from a trade perspective, you could definitely see the long end come down as the jobs number and the economy, I think, will weaken before they strengthen, just because of the reduction of federal spending.
Okay, let's take that break. When we come back, I've got a number of moves still in front of me to get to for all of you. Joe's got several. Weiss has some coming up too. We're back after this.